Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadidamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Peace, 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 and thank you all so much for tuning in today. Today we're going to start our journey down the 8-limb path, and this is the second video of this series. Of course, you could go back and check on the first one to understand that mantra that we just recited. But today we're going to start moving down this path, and when we start down any of these studies, any of these Vedantic studies, any of the scriptural studies, any of the yogic philosophy, anything at all, and really when we approach the study of anything in life, we kind of have to know a couple things. One, why? Why are we trying to get the attainment that we're seeking or overcome the obstacle that we're trying to? Why? And the second thing that we have to know is, what is the goal, right? What is the goal? A quick little silly analogy. Imagine someone comes up to you and they say, I need directions. And your first question back to them is, where are you trying to go? And if they answer you with, I don't know, you're not going to be able to help them very much. You're not going to be able to help them find their way to that unknown destination. So when we step foot on the yogic path, we have to know why, and we have to know where we're going. This is a roadmap. This is directions. This is instructions. And if we don't understand what the end game is, the end goal is, then anywhere along the path we might become complacent. We might become lazy, and we could easily just give up on the path. But that's if it's not something that we're seeking. So why? Why are you starting the study of the 8 limbs? What does it mean to you? What does yoga mean to you? What does your soul or your spirit mean to you? What are your contemplations of absolute oneness and divinity? And if these questions start creating a thirst, a longing for knowledge, you become what's called a jinyasi, or a seeker of knowledge, or a sadhak, a seeker of that highest self. So the why is very closely associated to the where I'm going, because if the reason I'm trying to approach this path is to overcome suffering and struggles and strife and mental affliction, or to really understand my soul, well, then you're on the right path, because all of these answers are given, all of these results are given at the highest limbs, and we'll get there. Before I go any further though, if you do find yourself enjoying this video at any point, please go ahead and hit the like button. It would help me so much, and it's free. It's also free to subscribe. So if you click that subscription button, it will also help me beyond words, with the algorithm and with, you know, the abilities within this app. So please, if you feel that you're enjoying the video and you want to see more, go ahead and hit those 2 buttons. Okay, let's get back to the lesson. So the why. The why being closely associated to the where I'm going. And knowing that that has to do with the soul, that has to do with the spirit, it has to do with, you know, that overriding all-inclusive oneness that perpetuates everything, but we can't see it with our eyes. This is not going to be an easy series of lessons. This yoga is not a simple science to study, and it's part of the reason why I bring this onto this platform and in this way, because I want people to know that it's not something that is studied and understood within 200 hours, 500 hours. If you guys have been around, you've heard me say the rant, whether here or on Instagram. It's not going to be something that simple. And when we start from scratch, start at the bottom of these 8 limbs, we can start to understand why. So we're approaching the 8 limbs. We have our why. We have our kind of understanding of where we're going. All right, it's going to get deeper. It's going to get more detailed on the where we're going. But right now, that's beyond perception. We're just looking for the clarity of the why. Now, we step foot onto this first path, and there is the first limb of yoga. The first limb of yoga, I know you've all been waiting. Drum roll, please. First limb is the yamas. The yamas, Y-A-M-A-S, the yamas. And they are a list of controls, a list of disciplines that they require us to control ourselves. Okay, so we're going to go through them one at a time. I'm not sure how many we'll get through today. There are 5 yamas in total. Okay, and these are really this is the stepping stone of the yogic practice of any spiritual path whatsoever. There has to be this disciplined claim to these moral observances, these ethical controls, if you will. We're going to require it of ourselves. We're going to make demands of ourselves, and we're going to meet these demands. If you are someone that has been stepping on a yoga mat to sweat, to look in shape, to do the stretchy component, to feel a little bit more athletic, stay with me, because we're going to get to where that influences all of these other things. But right now, if you're sitting here and your why has been to get into shape or to be able to do splits or handstands, that's not something that's off of the path. Okay? As you heard me say, this is discipline, control, this first limb, the yamas. So at some point it has to become something of the body. Right now we're just talking of the mind, of the emotions, of the senses, things like that. So stay with me, because if you're seeking those more advanced postures, or just the postures in and of themselves, you're 2 limbs ahead. Okay, so these are the prerequisites that you should have already known and you should be practicing before that asana. But if you're sitting up on the 3rd limb waiting for us, stay put and absorb these prior limbs now. It'll still do you an amazing, amazing benefit. So the first one of the first limb is called ahimsa. A-H-I-M-S-A, ahimsa. And this word ahimsa has been unfortunately miscategorized and mistranslated in large parts of the country for years. And I'm not someone that's going to be, rewriting the book. I'm going to teach you from the most ancient texts, from the most ancient perspectives, and from the perspective of understanding and the grandest sense. Okay? So what this ahimsa means, it means nonviolence. Okay? It means nonviolence. Where has this word been taken? They've taken it to the point of nonviolence no matter what. So, lay down and die kind of thing. Surrender your belongings if someone's at your door asking for them, and just lay down and, whatever happens kind of mentality. And that is not true. And that is very, very unfortunate for a lot of people throughout history even, that had considered that word to mean absolute nonviolence. For obvious reasons, they get taken advantage of in the individual context. Their family could be taken advantage of on that smaller societal context. But the society, if those societies believe that they're supposed to be completely nonviolent no matter what, well, unfortunately, we've seen, I'm not going to go into a history lesson with you right now, but we've seen in history that it is very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate when people claim this as a religious or a spiritual component of their communal life, and when a neighboring country or a neighboring tribe gets word of that, they just know they're going to lay down and die. They're going to give us their stuff. We're going to be able to take advantage in the fullest. So that's not what that word means. Okay, let's just get that right off the bat. That's not at all what that word means. It doesn't mean just lay down and die. It doesn't mean no matter what, you're not violent. Okay. Ahimsa means, the means to not. Okay, it means to take it away, to cancel it out. And ahimsa means to hurt or to be involved in that hurt. All right. So removing that hurt or that involvement in that hurt means that we're not going to be actively hurting something or someone ourselves. Okay? Ahimsa, to not be violent. Now, the allowance of violence leads us to another question. Who deserves it? Who are we protecting or defending, if anyone? Because it comes down to this innocence. It's a contemplation of innocence. And it's if you can defend yourself, but you're less innocent, then maybe, and this is again, it's very nuanced, it's very contextual, but that person might be the one that surrenders because dharma, okay, that the righteous person acting out is the one inflicting them harm. All right. So defending the innocence of the individual has to come into contemplation. If you know that there's an enemy in front of you that would do damage to the people behind you, well, you have to defend those innocents behind you, and really stand up for that righteousness, that dharma. Okay, you're going to hear me use that word a lot, dharma. It has a few different meanings depending upon the context, like all of these words do. Karma, dharma, yoga, all of these words have different meanings in the context, even something like ahimsa. Okay, so that's ahimsa. Pretty straightforward, but let's go even deeper. Let's take it even further. And let's remember that this nonviolence isn't just for us towards others, but it's also could be considered us towards ourselves. Unfortunately, in this world, we see people acting out against themselves physically. I'm not going to go into detail. It's a morbid topic, and at some point we'll hit it, but being able to tell yourself, no matter what, in this way, I am never going to hurt this body, because the body is a part of nature. The body is acting, reacting. It's involved in the world, and it's a part of the world. But the subtle body within it, the subtle body also falls into that category of being part of Prakriti, being part of the world. All right? So we might see things that frustrate us in the outside world. And let's say you're raising a puppy, okay? You're raising a puppy and it isn't house trained yet, so it's just using the bathroom all over the house. Well, it's a puppy. It doesn't know any better. You might get a little bit frustrated, but you're definitely not going to act out against the puppy. You're not going to treat it any lesser way. It's a puppy, just doing what it does. And eventually, once it knows better, it will scratch at the door, it'll bark at the door, it'll cry at the door, so that you'll let it out and it won't do it in the house. It'll know better. Well, the body, the mind, the intellect, the ego, the subtle and the gross body, they're both just parts of nature. And there comes times in our lives where we can say it just didn't know better. When we do know better, we act better. We react better. We ingrain those patterns and practices into our lives. But if we don't know better, we're certainly not going to become frustrated. We might be a little bit, but we're not going to be to the extent of doing physical harm. Okay, so in this life, there needs to be that understanding that there's never going to be a point in our life where this body deserves physical harm, especially from ourselves. Flip that even more. Let's go even further. We're talking about the gross body. I've mentioned the subtle body, but just think about the conflicts and strife that people have within themselves, within their own shukshma sharira, it's called, the subtle body. And that is very abusive at times. I can speak from experience. It's very distracting. It feeds doubts and fears. And if those things lead to conflicts within, we have to know which side is the righteous side and which side is the adharmic or unrighteous. And then we choose. and we choose wisely. We choose with knowledge. We choose with understanding. We know something very, very important. I'm going to let you in on a secret. So if you have a notebook handy, of course, this should be something you're jotting down. You know, maybe you write it on your hand. I eventually might get it tattooed across my neck. I kid. Love will always guide you. Love will guide you. When you're trying to decide which one's the righteous, which one's the thought that I should follow, love will be the one to guide you. Fear will try to control you. Okay? It'll grip you. It might push you towards certain things. It might move you towards certain things, but it does so with a very strong arm. Love will guide. Love will lead with knowledge so that you don't have to wonder if you're in agreement. You'll be having this experience of agreement, of understanding, deep-seated understanding that'll make you want to follow that love. Okay? So, ahimsa, in the outside world, in societal terms, inside, and in our physical terms, ahimsa. Wow, I'm talking for maybe 15 minutes about ahimsa, and I can bet you already know I'm just getting started. Just warming up to this one topic, 3 syllables, ahimsa. And yet, it's only just begun. This lesson for ahimsa has only just begun. I mean, not with me today, right now. I'm done telling you about ahimsa, but I hope it introduced some questions for you. I hope it opened up another door and you walk down that and start asking questions, digging for more answers. If you have any questions that you'd like to directly relay towards me, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be sure to get back to them. If not by answering the comment, it could just become a next video in the series so that everyone moves forward with proper clarification. Let's go into one more word. Let's do one more yama. How's that sound? One more yama, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. Ahimsa satya. Okay, satya is next. Satya, be truthful. Be honest. I'm going to always give you those 2, whether it's the outside, right, through our manifest, out into the manifest. We're going to relate with these yamas and niyamas. But we have to start understanding this subtle body much, much more. And to understand satya, we need to get this clarified a little bit. The gross body, I get it. It's my body. It's the body that is on the outside. It's the body that I label and I claim. My hand, my head, my eyes, even through the senses, I claim them. But you can't see them. You can't see my eyes looking. You can see my eyes, but you don't know if they're looking, right? You can see my ears, but you can't see what I'm hearing. Okay, so that is the furthest out of the subtle body, is the senses. Okay, these are the indriyas, the senses. Indriyas. I'm going to try to spell everything for you guys. If I forget and you're looking for the spelling, send it into the comments and I'll make sure I clarify. The indriyas are the furthest out. They're looking out. They're experiencing out. And because of that, there's different ways that the texts have referenced them. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that they're touching. He also says that they're eating. So we think our mouth is eating. I don't think about my eyes eating. But the word eating could be very logically brought to consuming. And then our senses are absolutely consuming. What they're consuming. We need that to be an honest relay to the mind, the next part of the subtle body. So it goes senses, mind, mana, M-A-N-A. Behind the mind is the intellect, bodhi, B-O-D-D-H-I, or B-O-D-H-I, bodhi. That intellect knows. Okay, I'm not going to go much further than that. I'm going to break these things down in excruciating detail over the time of this 8-limbed series. But Right now, we can just talk about those two, the mind and the intellect. The mind thinks, the mind reacts. The mind has emotions that it connects to its thoughts and its reactions, and those are all correlated to the senses. It's what the mind is touching with, what the mind is consuming with. So it consumes, then it labels, then it has its reaction, whether it's an emotional reaction or just a thought. Once that happens, that is then relayed to the intellect. The intellect will either verify or negate what the mind thought, or it will perpetuate or hinder the emotional reaction of the mind, okay, just by your knowledge. Example, I have a straight stick. Straight as an arrow. It's a ruler. Let's just use a ruler. And I have a bucket of water. You see that the ruler is straight, but when I put it into the water, your senses lie to you and they tell you that the stick warped. The water made it look like it warped. So your mind's immediate reaction is that the stick is no longer straight. But intellect steps in and says, no. The stick is still straight. And you know it when the stick is withdrawn from the water. But up until then, the mind is only able to calculate what it's perceiving, what it's consuming. And it sees stick bent, it labels stick bent, and intellect is the one to say no. This is Satya. This is Satya. Okay, this is Satya on the very, very subtle. Because Satya, like I said, don't lie. We covered that? I hope we covered that. Don't lie. What's that saying? If you always tell the truth, you never have to remember any stories. So don't lie. Okay? You don't have to keep track of lies. You just tell the truth. It's painful sometimes. It's helpful sometimes. Be honest. We good? We're adults. Satya. Okay? I think that everyone that's tuned into my channel would like to know these nuanced components. I think that anyone that is seeking out these higher standpoints of knowledge and understanding, even if they're going to take them onto a yoga mat or a mat that they practice yoga on, I know the benefit of the subtle body introspection. Okay, we have to study it. We have to analyze it. We have to observe it. And eventually we'll witness it, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So yes, let that connection of intellect be loud. Let that connection that the intellect has be a very loud and very forceful one. Okay? Know when to trust yourself too, because most of the time it's the mind getting louder because it's emotional and it wants to be right. So we have to quiet that mind. We have to still that mind. We have to calm that mind down so that the intellect can speak up, because it's not as loud. It's not emotional. It knows. Okay? It knows with logic, with reason, with discernment. It knows. So being able to be honest with ourselves internally sometimes might lead the mind to have an emotional reaction. We might have something we know that the mind doesn't want us to know. And even if the mind doesn't mind that we know, excuse the pun, even if the mind doesn't mind, it will still keep it quiet. It'll still keep it from reacting, from from exposing the truth. Okay? Because it doesn't take much to override that intellectual whisper. It takes just the mind to have a bubble up, just the mind to have a little bit of a cry, or a little bit of a yearning for attention, and our intellect will be distracted and everything that comes with it. But we have to be honest, very forcefully honest, very calmly honest with ourselves within. and that is Satya. So there's three more. There's three more yamas to get through. Okay, now I know I'm going to say the same thing at the end of Ahimsa that I did. Satya was just warming up. You guys have to remember that this science is thousands of years old. Okay, there's only been these yoga mats. A mat that someone practices yoga on. It's been called a yoga mat only for a few decades. Now there's yoga blocks and there's yoga straps. A yoga block is just a rectangle of styrofoam or cork. A yoga strap is a belt. A yoga water bottle is a water bottle. A yoga headband is a head. We've only had these things very, very recently, is what I'm trying to say. And it wasn't because the soul-saving practice was at the forefront. It's because a lot of people started realizing they can make money. And we've seen this with many, many things throughout history. Very pure and honest, intentioned concepts can eventually become sold and become the opportunity for greed. So with that thousands of year old practice, these big terms, well, they're not going to be easily taught. They're not going to be easily understood and reflected upon. So this is up to you. This is your homework. This is where you become the teacher. I'm just the guide. I just led you to the word, led you to the definition of the word, to the more esoteric description of the word. But what's that saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So here's the knowledge. Here's the understanding. We're two terms in, the two yamas. Okay, Ahimsa, Satya. Go for it. Run with them. Observe the mind. Contemplate Himsa and Ahimsa. And let your practice go deeper, whether it's sitting in meditation, whether it's eyes wide open, interacting with the world, or whether it's sitting and moving on a mat that you call a yoga mat. Just take these practices with you and let them really impact you at your core. Because we're just getting started. We're just warming up. I would like to say this is the tip of the iceberg, but this is the snowflake that's resting on the tip of the iceberg. So I'll ask you guys again, if you did find yourself enjoying it, and I mean, listen, if you made it this far, how did you not hit the like button? And if you want to make sure you see more in the future, please hit the subscription button. It would help me so much. And I'll say it again, it's free. It's free for you guys. All these lessons, all this information, this is part of the teacher trainings, or it should be part of every single teacher training. But yeah, here it's free. You just got to subscribe. And I can't thank you enough for liking, for subscribing, for sharing, for commenting, for supporting the channel in any way you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We close with mantra. Asatoma satgamaya tamasoma jyotir gamaya mrityorma mritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Peace, peace, peace. Have a beautiful day.